Sometimes the biggest mysteries in history don't start with some huge earth-shattering event. They start with a quiet question. Our story today is exactly that, a quest that stretches across centuries and continents, all to find a man who was almost completely lost to time, an English missionary named William Southam.
And this is our starting point right here, this single question from an author named Shen Jia. As a kid, he'd go to church in his hometown of Wenzhou, China, and he would just stare up at these enormous 10-meter-high black pillars. And he couldn't shake the question, who brought these here? That little bit of childhood curiosity kicked off a globe-trotting investigation to find the man behind them. So let's be clear, our story doesn't actually kick off in the 19th century with missionaries and empires. Nope, it starts right now in the present day with Shen Jia. For him, those pillars were more than just architecture. They were an obsession, a physical link to a past that everyone seemed to have forgotten. His quest to figure out where they came from, well, that's the thread we're going to follow to unravel the incredible life of William Southam. To really get what Southam was up against, we have to picture the world he was stepping into. It's 1882. He's just 21 years old, no university degree to his name, and he leaves England for China. But here's the kicker. He wasn't walking into some undeveloped backwater. At that exact moment, the late Qing dynasty had the largest GDP in all of Asia. This wasn't some simple story of the developed West meeting the undeveloped East. This was a complex collision of two powerful and profoundly different civilizations. So, in 1883, Southam lands in the coastal city of Wenzhou, and he wasn't just a long way from home geographically. It's not an exaggeration to say he might as well have been on another planet. The cultural chasm he had to cross was just immense, and at first it felt completely impossible. I mean, this comparison really paints a picture, doesn't it? It shows you just how deep that chasm was. Everything about him was alien. The beautiful English alphabet that he knew. To the locals, it looked like the messy tracks left by a fly's legs after it had been dipped in ink. His fair skin, which was a sign of health back in England, made him look white as a dead man. Even a friendly hello was met with suspicion. He was totally, completely alone. And Southam himself, well, he captured this feeling of isolation perfectly. He hadn't just moved to a new country, he'd shown up completely uninvited and, frankly, unwanted. Can you even imagine that? The crushing loneliness of knowing that in the entire country, not a single soul was waiting for you or cared about what you had to say? So what do you do when you're faced with a wall of misunderstanding that high? How do you even start to connect? For Southam, the answer was pretty radical and incredibly difficult. He realized he had to stop being an outsider, and his first step was a huge one: master the local language. And I'm not just talking about Mandarin. He had to learn the notoriously complex Wenzhou dialect, a dialect so tough that outsiders said it sounded like the chirping of birds. But, okay, so just when you think he's maybe, just maybe, starting to make some headway, bam! The simmering political tensions of the time just exploded. And that explosion was aimed squarely at him and the few other foreigners living in Wenzhou. Let's mark the date, October 4th, 1884. Far away from Wenzhou, the Sino-French War was raging over control of Vietnam. But the conflict was like a match to a powder keg, igniting this wave of anti-foreigner fury that swept across China. Rumors started flying around Wenzhou that the French were about to attack, and suddenly any Westerner was seen as a potential enemy. So picture this. It's Saturday night. Southam's holding a small service in his little chapel. Suddenly, a mob starts to form outside. The service has barely even started when, crash, the first stones come shattering through the windows. It was the beginning of an absolutely terrifying ordeal. The scene just spirals into pure chaos. A wave of men, many of them stripped to the waist, break down the back door and flood the courtyard. They weren't just there to shout. They brought kerosene, what they called foreign oil, and they set the entire mission on fire. Southam and his followers were trapped in a burning building, surrounded by a violent mob. He lost absolutely everything that night. Now, after escaping with literally just the clothes on his back, you'd think he'd pack it in, right? Head back to England, and who could possibly blame him? But he didn't. Instead, it seems like that fire forged something new in him, a new kind of resolve. He realized his old methods just weren't cutting it. He needed a completely new strategy. This led him to a totally new game plan, a brilliant one actually. First up, he doubled down on the language, but went way beyond the textbooks to learn local slang and customs. Second, he got out of the city and went to the countryside, where he found people were just more open. And third, and this was the real game changer, he started using his basic medical training to heal the sick. By treating everyday illnesses, he wasn't just preaching anymore. He was showing his value and building trust, one person at a time. 20 years. That's how long a local scholar, a man named Mr. Deng, had been fighting a crippling opium addiction, and Soothhill helped him break it. After 2 decades. This incredible success didn't just save Mr. Deng's life, it led to the creation of a local rehab center and completely changed Soothhill's reputation in the community. He was no longer the foreign devil, he was a hero. So, Soothhill's new approach, it's working. But success, well, it often brings new kinds of trouble. And this led to his greatest challenge yet, a standoff in the town of Feng Lin. It started as a local dispute over religion and blew up into a major international incident that would test him to his absolute limits. Okay, so here's the situation in a nutshell. A group of local Christian converts started holding their services in a shared ancestral hall. Now, to the powerful Zhou clan, this was a massive sign of disrespect, a complete break from tradition. So they issued a proclamation, kicking the converts out of the clan, seizing their land, destroying their crops. The converts fought back, saying they had a right to freedom of religion under a treaty, and they went to Soothhill for help.
And this is where things get really interesting. Soothhill steps in, but he doesn't just offer sympathy, he takes action. He brings the case to the British consul. And just like that, a small-town clan dispute becomes an international affair. This put massive pressure on the local Qing officials, who were now stuck between a rock and a hard place. The angry local gentry on one side, and the diplomatic power of the British Empire on the other.
All right, so let's fast forward. After decades of incredible work in China, Soothhill eventually goes back to England, where he becomes a respected professor of Chinese at Oxford University. But for our author, Shen Jia, the story wasn't over. The quest for the man behind those pillars, it wasn't finished. He still had one last thing to do: find Soothhill's final resting place. His search finally leads him to Rose Hill Cemetery in Oxford. But there's no grand monument. There isn't even a simple headstone. All he finds is a patch of earth marked by 4 stone borders, almost completely swallowed by the ground. In this really poignant moment, Shen Jia and a local librarian get on their hands and knees, literally digging through the mud with a borrowed flower stand to see what was carved on the stones. And that's when they find it. The names William Edward Soothhill and his wife Lucy. And along with their names, they found this incredible inscription: "Their work abideth." The librarian explained that abideth is an old word. It means to endure, to remain. And wow, did it ever. After all the turmoil, the triumphs, and after being nearly forgotten by history, Soothhill's work did endure, in the memory of a community, in the history he helped shape, and in those giant black pillars that sparked a child's question half a world away. The story of William Soothhill really shows you something, doesn't it? History isn't just about the big headlines and the famous names. It's forged in the quiet resilience of ordinary people navigating worlds that are not their own. His life proves that real connection isn't built through big speeches, but through service, through understanding, and through the slow, hard work of earning trust. It really makes you wonder, right? Whose forgotten stories are out there, all around us, just waiting for someone to ask the right question?